Hey everyone, how's it going today? Coach Alvarez here, back at you another episode of Coffee with Coach. Hope you're up doing well. Got the mind in the right place. If not, as always, let's put it in the right place. So today I want to talk about belt promotions, how I rank my students, and why I do what I do, and some of the reasonings behind that for some more clarity for some. Had a big weekend over the weekend, and it's actually our first promotion of the year. Normally I would have had one or at least two already by now, but I decided to wait and focus on some basics and fundamentals and some things like that, tighten those things up, and then get them in. So we got them in this past weekend. So we handed out a lot of stripes, quite a few new belts on Saturday, and I want to say it was yesterday, maybe Sunday. But I had a student of mine that's been training me for a long time, maybe 10 years, something like that, off and on, 10 years, come and go. And they sent me a video of Jocko, for those that know who Jocko is. And it was a video on, they were discussing on the podcast, should you pursue your belt rank, worry about when you get promoted and things like that nature. So they covered a bunch of different topics in that thing. And so I just figured, since we just had promotions, and then the student of mine sent me this video and was like, this is how you rank me. He says, you rank me by potential, don't you? And then put LOL, question mark, And actually that's not true as far as this one goes. But there's a lot of reasons on why or how you get your rank in jiu-jitsu, okay? So many different factors and variables. So let's go over a few of them. All right, so for me, in regards to like pursuing your belt and like, worrying and thinking about your belt, for those that are new to jiu-jitsu or how like that aren't sure, IBJJF, the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation, has guidelines for belts for kids. Like a certain year old kid can only get this gray belt by this age, a yellow belt by 7, orange belt by 10, green belt by 13, and can't have a blue belt until they're 16. And then for the adults, it's a little different. There's not really like an age limit. It's just a time limit. Okay, so in the time limit, white belts, if you're training consistently 2-3 times a week, it could be, for me, it's normally about a year and a half, give or take. Could be a little less, could be a little bit more, depending on the attendance, that kind of thing. And then when you get to blue belt, it's a minimum requirement of at least 2 years. Now, these aren't my requirements. It's IBJJF. It's what I go by. So it's a minimum of at least 2 years, okay? And that could be, obviously could be longer. Purple belt is a year and a half minimum. And then brown belt's 1 year minimum. And then you can get your black belt. And after that, it has your degrees and so on and so forth. So anyways, I like to give my students like a deadline. I like to let my students know, hey, I'm going to give you your belt around this time. And the reason why is because life happens, you get busy, you get too comfortable is really what I see for the most part. You just start messing around and just not really taking things serious. But if you know I'm going to give you your belt, like you're going to get a new belt, like you're going to get a blue belt in 2 months or let's say 6 months, or you got your blue belt and your purple belt's coming up. And I'm like, all right, in December, you're getting your purple belt. Because I don't want you to get lazy. I don't want my students to get lazy. They'll play around. They'll skip some classes. They'll do whatever. If they know they're getting a new belt soon, okay, I've seen a pattern of where they just kind of stay on track more. But if it's just like, I don't know, you'll get your pro belt whenever, could be 2 years from now, could be a year from now, could be 3 years from now. I was listening to this guy I follow. I don't think I follow him. I just see his stuff pop up all the time on Instagram. His name is Yoshi Yamaguchi, I think his name is, and he's under Kurt Osiander. And they were talking about the same thing, about belts. And he goes, man, back in the day, Kurt would make you wait at least 3-4 years per belt. Okay. And he said, I spent about 4 years or so per belt. And he said his brown belt, I think he was like 4.5 years for his brown belt. I think that was normal a long time ago when jiu-jitsu first hit the scene. And I think nowadays with the resources that we have with social media, BJ Fanatics, all these videos that are out, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the instructionals, there's so much resources that students are just picking up things so much faster because they're just readily available. Where for me, I explained to my students back in the day, VHS tapes. I had to wait for magazines to like come in the mail, and then they would have like techniques broken down and whatever. And then I had to order VHS tapes and then wait to get them and then, watch them in your VCR and stuff. That's how things were for me. There was way different. There was no social media when I was a blue belt and purple belt and maybe even brown belt, because I was a brown belt in 2006 or something like that, But nowadays, the learning curve is a lot shorter because you have all these. My students don't have to wait to come to me for certain things. They can just literally pick up their phone or their laptop or whatever computer and just start looking at things and picking up things, in which I'll see students come on the mat, they're training and they'll try new things. And I didn't show them that. They learned that from the internet. And so they pick up things faster. So I shorten those things and I really go by the IBJJF requirements. So if I have a student that's been consistent, not missing any classes, blue belt, 2 years, getting after it. I got some blue belts that are trained 6 a.m., 10:30, 7 p.m. and they're competing and I'm not going to make them wait 3-4 years to get to get their purple belt. I'm going to tell them, hey, look, this is the deadline. This is where you're at. This is what I'm expecting of you. And this is where I'm going to put you. And so if you got any goals you would like to meet, or you have anything you're trying to do in between this from now until then you need to get after it. And students will get after it. They'll start signing up for tournaments. They'll ask more questions. They'll try to improve their game better. But if it's just like, I have no clue when this belt's going to come, when things are going to happen, then they get relaxed. They get comfortable. They get they're not training as hard. They're not signing up for tournaments. They're not asking the questions they should ask. Because it could be anywhere from now until who knows when. And so I would see a pattern in that case. So for me as a coach, this doesn't apply to everyone, but for me, I see, hey, look, there's a deadline here. If you want anything if you want to accomplish anything, tournaments, whatever, have a certain game by this time and add it into your game by this deadline here, then we need to get to work. And students will get to work. And what'll happen is, I was explaining to the students the other day, when you're a white belt, you're pretty excited and pretty pumped up and really you want your blue belt. Anything after a blue belt, I would say for the most part, most students are like, I don't want the belt, because they see the difference in just the levels of jiu-jitsu. When you're a white belt, you have no clue and you're just you're new to it and you suck at it because it's new and you don't really care and you're just trying anything and you're looking to tap other people out, like blue belts and whatever up. And so you're just going after it. But when you get a blue belt, now you're moving up the totem pole a little bit. And now it's well, no, I don't want to get tapped by so-and-so or so-and-so. So you start putting too much thought into the process, thinking too much, hesitating, scared of the new belt rank, going to purple belt, those kind of things. And so they start holding themselves back. They're getting comfortable. And what I'll do is, as soon as I feel like a student is trying to pull back and get comfortable, I'm going to push them forward. And they start running from their belts, their rank and whatever. If you don't feel like you're ready, my students, what I tell them is then get ready. If you feel like you're weak in an area or you're not as good as you would like to be, then get as good as you would like to be. Fix the weak areas and get stronger in those areas. Because I'm not going to allow you to get comfortable and relaxed and then just waste time and just think, oh, well, yeah, I want to be, because this was this common thing in the past. Well, I want to be a 3-year purple belt or a 3-year brown belt. People would literally say, I want to be a 3-year purple belt or 3-year brown belt or 4-year. I would never tell myself that. I wasn't in a hurry to get to the next rank because it's a long journey. first got my blue belt, I'm like, well, I know I got at least 2 years at this. So I had 2 years to try to do whatever I need to do in 2 years to show my coach that I'll be ready for a purple belt whenever that time is, in that 2 year mark when that time comes. And I think pretty much most of my belts, except for my blue belt, I got in like 6.5 months, I think, because I had a lot of wrestling and whatever in my background. So I got my blue belt pretty fast. But all the other belts were minimum, like not minimum, but they were right around the 2 year mark per belt after that, you know, blue, purple, brown. And then I got my black belt. So, but I like to, each individual is different. And like what Jocko was talking about in this podcast was like, he gave an example of like some 65-year-old guy he trains with or whatever. And he's got potential, okay? Potential. And, you know, he just doesn't have like all these things that other younger guys had and whatever, but he trains and he shows up and he's got the time in, and he's like, he's a blue belt. He's going to blue belt. And like, that's it. No one else can say anything about it. Like, he might not be blue belt, like a 25-year-old blue belt that's getting after it and that's all they're doing for their livelihood is jiu-jitsu. You know, the 65-year-old has other things and other, you know, commitments or whatever in their life or whatever, and they just love training jiu-jitsu. But they got the time in, and they show up to class all the time, and they try really hard, and they put in the work and the effort. We're going to give them the blue belt. And that's pretty much how it works with me too. Like, there's just students that have really athletic gifts. They can do cartwheel passes, they can do this, they can do that. They're flexible, they're just fast, quick, strong. And then you got other students that don't have none of those things. And, you know, they just don't have those things. So they're still going to get their blue belt in regards to the fact that, can you show me an armbar, triangle, omoplata, kimura, guillotine, you know, your basic scissor sweeps, sit-up sweep, back sweeps, all these fundamental things. Can you do those things? And if the answer is yes, and you show up to class 2-3 times or more a week for a year and a half, I'm going to give you your blue belt. And what would happen in the past, what I would have like very, really good students, like, complain about that. Like, oh, coach, you know, there's two in particular. They don't train with me anymore. But they would always, like, one night I was like midnight at the school till midnight, literally like debating or trying to explain to these guys, my own students that were judging on how I gave these other guys that weren't as good as they were their blue belt or their purple belt. And I'm like, guys, look, all you guys care about is jiu-jitsu. These other guys don't care about it like that. You train every day. These guys don't train every day, but they show up. They do train, and they show up every week, and they train hard, and they put in the effort, and they're good. They're just not as good as you. It's just what it is. Like, they have other commitments. You know, at this time, you know, this one of the two individuals, I'm pretty sure one of them still doesn't have kids, but the other one didn't have any kids at the time. Well, now they do. Things are different. They got a different job now, all this stuff. So now they're pretty much like, to me, in that category where these guys were at a long time ago. But in the beginning, they were like these young 20-year-old kids, 20-something, early 20s. And it was just their thing. They just loved it so much. They were just doing it all the time. And then these other guys that were like in their 30s or 35 years old, training, showing up every week, doing all the drills, doing all the rounds, no complaining, no whining, can actually apply the techniques in the training, in the rounds. And they were good. They just weren't as good as these other guys because of all the extra effort these other guys were putting in. And these other guys has had a higher IQ for jiu-jitsu. And I would give these other students their blue belts or their purple belt or whatever the case may be. And these other guys would debate me on these things, you know. And I'm like, one of these days you'll be in that position where I'm at. And these guys are now. They are in that position. So I'm pretty sure they have a better understanding of how you have to look at each individual and rank them according to the best of what they can do, not compare them to your highest, best blue belt or your highest, best purple belt or best brown belt. If that's the case, then most people wouldn't get ranked, okay? Let's take, for instance, me as a black belt. And I'm a 4th degree black belt. I have 3 Master World Championships. I have 5 No-Gi Master World Championships. I have the #1 ranking in the 2017-2018 season. Okay, that's from rooster weight to ultra heavyweight. Out of all the black belts in Master 3 in the entire world, I'm ranked #1. I have that ranking as #1. All the other major championships, the Europeans, the Brazilian nationals, the list goes on, man. What if you had to rank, or whoever had to rank their black belts to me? They would never get their first degree. Other black belts in this area closest to me would never ever get their first degree because they're not going to do the things that I've done. They're not going to travel to the places that I've done. The bar is set so high that if you compared every black belt to me, at least in this area, are they going to go and do all those things that I did? Are they going to accomplish? Are they going to win those tournaments like I did? American Nationals, I think I'm like 5-time champion, American National champion. The answer is no. Okay? The answer is those guys will get their first degree, second degree, third degree, whatever. If they continue training and putting in the work, they'll get their degrees on their black belt. But you can't compare yourself, or you can't compare other students to other students. What you compare them to is their work ethic, their own work ethic, their own effort, their own abilities of what they have, and that's how you rank them. And each individual is different. And so some students just don't feel like they're ready. And like I tell my students, when you just don't feel like you're ready, I'm going to push you to get to that ready point. And you need to step in and embrace that role as a new purple belt, a new brown belt, a new blue belt, whatever the case may be. And you step up and you lead by example, and you do the right things, and you embrace that role and embrace that new belt and embrace that rank. And then don't run from it, because if you run from it, I'll chase you around with it, trying to get you to that point. And where, like, I've actually had not many, maybe 1 or 2, like, a part of the reason why they left is because they didn't want the other rank. They didn't want the new rank. And they were ready. They were more than ready. Guys, look, I've been in this game for 25 years. All I do is jiu-jitsu. I don't do anything else. I study business for my business and how to grow the business. Okay. But that's after studying jiu-jitsu. Okay. I study my students on a daily basis. I know all their games. I know what they can do, what they can't do. I know what they're scared of, what they're not scared of. I know who they run from, who they don't run from. I know what they're good at, what they're not good at, like their weak areas. And like, I know, like, my eyes are on them all the time. So I know what they can do and what they can't do. They don't know what they can do because they've never been there before. Okay, they've never been there before. They've never had a purple belt before, for instance, as a blue belt. They don't know what's on the other side of that blue belt to get the purple belt. I do. I've been there before. I can see that this individual is ready. Or let's say brown belt. I can see that this individual has those skills and has the capabilities to step into the brown belt level and then go, if they wanted to compete, go and win. Okay. Give you an example, because I got to get up to class. I'll be here all day with like things, right? Had 2 students. Well, there's 2 of my students. They're just not at my academy right now. They're just out of town. One was I just gave him the purple belt, okay? And the other one I gave the brown belt to. And the Dallas Open was coming up. And I'm like, hey, I need you to step up. Like, team needs you. Like, I need you to compete, because they're competitors, okay? They're competitors. But they just got the purple belt and they just got the brown belt. And the first thing they did was push back. Like, oh, coach, I don't know. I just got my purple belt, because, and when you get your purple belt, just like any other belt, you could compete against someone that just got their purple belt like you, or it's got a year in a purple belt, or a year and a half at purple belt, 2 years at purple belt, or even 3 years at purple belt, and you're just new purple belt. So the mindset is like, I'm not ready for that. I don't know if I can beat those other belts that's been already at this belt for a long time already. Again, I study jiu-jitsu. I study my students. I know my students' capabilities and what they can and can't do. And if I didn't think they couldn't do it, I wouldn't ask them to do it. Anyways, I asked them to do it. I think I even paid for their entry into the tournament. If not both, at least one for sure. And they both won. The smiles on their face, because they're a couple, just is priceless. They both won that day, like their first tournament at that new belt rank at the Dallas Open, which is a really hard tournament because of the level of jiu-jitsu in this area is really, really good. There's a lot of good jiu-jitsu in this area. And they both won their first time competing at that new belt rank. And they did it, okay? I know what I'm doing. Okay? I know what I'm doing. I've been doing it for a very long time. The thing is you don't know what you're doing and you've never been there before, so you just you freak out. Okay? You've never been a purple belt before, and now you're getting ready to get your purple belt, so you're panicking, anxiety, you're feeling all this pressure, and it's like, step into it. Step into the pressure, step into the role, embrace the role. Other students are looking up to you and they're watching your reactions and how you're handling that position. Step into the role. I have another student, really good at white belt, ended the white belt on a good note with some gold medals. And then when I gave him his blue belt, he wasn't really sure if he was ready, all this other stuff. He won his last tournament as a white belt, completely dominated the guys. I want to say all his matches he won by double digits to 0, okay? The guy was ready. So I gave him his blue belt in a year and a half, a little less than a year and a half or something like that. So anyways, he waits and he waits and he waits to compete. He likes to compete. He just, at first, he didn't want to compete, and then he started to compete. And I'm like, you're going to compete? You're going to compete? You shouldn't wait. You just got your blue belt. You should go and test yourself, see where you're at, because that's what I did. Every new belt I got, I found a tournament the next weekend. And I drove wherever, because back then we had to, I had to drive because IBJJF just didn't really have tournaments for me back then. They just were more local, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. So I get in the car and drive wherever. And I needed to know. I needed to know where I was at with these other blue belts in the state of Texas. So that's what I did. So that's what I was trying to tell this one student of mine, and he's been fighting on me tooth and nail until this past weekend. Decided to sign up for a tournament, went out there and competed, Jiu-Jitsu World League, and he won by 8-0, 10-0, whatever. Dominated both matches, took gold. Guy trains every day, asks a lot of questions, puts in the work, eats healthy, loses the weight, does the necessary things, does the necessary sacrifices, invest in his jiu-jitsu the way he should. I know what he can do. I see the guy. I know this stuff. He don't know what he can't do. So the pushback, being scared, I don't want to do it, I'm not ready. Finally, he does it. He competes. He wins. All is good, right? It's not going to happen like that all the time. But the point is I've produced really, really good students in all the years that I've been doing this, okay? This is my 14th year as a coach. And little by little, all over the Metroplex, or at least in this area, there's really good jiu-jitsu out there because they came from this academy. So when it comes to your belt rank and all the different variables that are involved to get it, you just have to trust not only in yourself and your jiu-jitsu, but then trust in me as a coach, or wherever you're at in your coach, that they're giving it to you for a reason. They believe in you. They believe in your skill set. And also, they're probably doing the same thing that I'm doing, is they're probably getting you out of your comfort zone and pushing you into that next level for a reason, because they believe you can go to that next level and do good at that next level, but you don't think you can because you've never been there before. Okay? It just is what it is. It's like I never flew before in a plane. and I got scared. Like, again, I gave this story before. Being Mexican and watching La Bamba as a kid, you never wanted to fly ever, like, period, because you're just thinking the thing's gonna blow up in the midair and you're gonna, Richie Valens and that whole thing. This is true. Might sound corny, but it was like I just didn't really want to fly. And then after you fly a couple times and you get all that out of your system of the plane crashing and all this other stuff, I mean, it still can happen, but next thing you know, I'm flying every weekend to go compete. That's not even in my mind about what might happen of the plane blowing up or whatever. I just want to get to the tournament wherever I'm at and go compete and go win and do whatever I got to do, or go just see whatever it is that we're trying to go see around the world. And that's it. The other stuff is just out of my mind. So you got to think about it like that. You just don't know what you don't know. You never been there before. Never put your, never had that thing before. So you just freak out. And you put all these fears in your mind and all these things in your mind, all these unnecessary thoughts. And you start giving the coach a hard time because you're just freaking yourself out and making it harder for you and your coach to kind of connect. And it's like, man, just believe in your jiu-jitsu. If you're showing up. If you're not showing up and you're not working out, you're not eating right, you're not putting in the work and you're fluffing off or whatever, then yeah, you should be worried. But if you're doing all the other things right and you're showing up and you're putting in the work, especially in my school, like I make my students work. Like those belts aren't, they're not given away. Like I make them earn it, okay? So, embrace it and then get after it. It's simple. So there's a lot of things. Again, I gotta go. I gotta get up to the class. I'm like way late already as it is. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. But each individual is different, and you just gotta trust in the process, trust in your jiu-jitsu, and then trust in your coach. All right, guys, have a good day. We'll catch you on the next one. We'll see you.